Black Robe Regiment is back again today.
That's a chilling excerpt of Glenn Beck's revival meeting last Saturday in front of Lincoln Memorial. Happy September to our irreverent audience. More on Beck in a bit. I'm Laurie Gaylor, and welcome to Free Thought Radio.
And I'm Dan Barker, your friendly neighborhood atheist. This is the Labor Day weekend of 2010.
And we hope you're not having to labor over Labor Day weekend.
You know, 21 years ago today, you, Laurie, were literally not in labor, but in delivering, right? On September the 4th, 1989. Was Labor Day.
Yeah, actually, it was an emergency C-section, so I wasn't in labor, but I did manage to crack a joke about it being a very appropriate day to give birth before they put me under.
So, happy birthday to our daughter Sabrina, who turns 21 today. Sabrina was a little more than 6 weeks early, and she weighed under 3 pounds, but today she's a college student. And when that traumatic emergency happened, we didn't invoke some supernatural power to get us through it. We invoked some of the best medical care in the entire Midwest that we could find here in Madison, Wisconsin.
And Sabrina, by the way, has come up with a great PR idea for FFRF and Free Thought that we'll be unveiling at the end of the month, so stay tuned to our shows to learn more about it.
Free Thought Radio broadcasts and streams from the Progressive Talk, the Mike 92.1 in Madison, Wisconsin, airs also in Atlanta, Anchorage, Grand Rapids, and Monterey, and podcasting through the universe. Go to iTunes if you want to find this on a podcast.
Free Thought Radio is the weekly production of the Freedom From Religion Foundation. We're a national educational nonprofit group, started in 1978 as a national group, the largest association of atheists and agnostics in North America, working to keep state and church separate.
Our guest today will be an octogenarian life member of the Freedom From Religion Foundation. He's a farmer. He's the real thing. He's a farmer from Wisconsin who arranged for FFRF to place a billboard in Watertown, Wisconsin. The billboard is a legacy, he said, for his grandchildren. And last week, his billboard that says, "Enjoy life now, there is no afterlife," was defaced. It's going to be replaced after Labor Day, so FFRF and our member will get our full 6-week lease. And by the way, that defacement was a felony due to the amount of damage involved.
We'll be talking with this farmer and free thinker on the second half of Free Thought Radio about the billboard controversy, about why he, as an 82-year-old, rejects religion, and more about his idea of a free thought idea as a legacy for grandchildren.
And as always, we're going to comment now on the news of the week. When it comes to state-church separation or free thought, there's a lot of crazy news out there.
And most of it has to do with Mormon convert zealot Glenn Beck of Fox TV. Everyone knows that Glenn Beck, 47 years after Martin Luther King's March on Washington, where he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, that Beck chose the same spot at the Lincoln Memorial and the anniversary of that date to hold his so-called Restoring Honor rally. And Beck specifically billed it as non-political.
Basically, Glenn Beck called for a national revival, religious revival, and his talk about the black-robed regiment inevitably conjured up brown shirt imagery, at least in my mind. Here, listen to a little bit of Glenn Beck at the mall last Saturday saying he was there to restore God to America.
There was what was called the Black Robe Regiment. England hated the preachers. When they came, the British, they had a real hard time with the preachers. In fact, if you were a preacher, you were most likely to be killed during the American Revolution. Why? Because it was first the preacher that said all men are created equal, that rights come from God, no government, no king. Well, we have fallen asleep as a nation, and our churches have fallen asleep. This isn't about one church or one faith over another. It is about the eternal principles of God. For 240 years, they have been absent from the American landscape. The Black Robe Regiment is back again today.
Well, where to begin? We are busy fact-checking this patently absurd statement that the British targeted colonial preachers and ministers, and we'll have more for you on that next week. But of course, most ministers in colonial America were Anglican Church of England. And the Revolutionary War actually brought together many of the denominations, and, for example, Catholics, who had been barely tolerated, as they called it legally, and other minorities became far more accepted by other colonialists working together on a common cause. The common cause suggested by freethinker Thomas Paine of independence from a monarchy.
But the idea that the phrase, all men are created equal, was uttered first by a minister? That's not true. Those exact words in the Declaration of Independence were written by the unorthodox deist Thomas Jefferson, and more about that later. But notice that Beck said that there's been no God for 240 years in the United States. This, folks, is a pitch for theocracy and a slam on our godless and secular Constitution. Our nation being founded as a secular republic.
And here's just a bit more from Beck's rally last week.
America, it is time to start the heart of this nation again and put it where it belongs, our heart with God. Go to your churches, your synagogues, your mosques.
Well, America's heart has not been beating for 240 years, and we're still alive in spite of the fact that we've never been and will never be a theocracy. It's good that we are a godless nation. Look at the wars we went through and the depression that we went through and all that without, as Beck said, without this God.
Dan, you were on the Alona TV show out of D.C., which is nationally syndicated, right?
It's D.C., New York, and Los Angeles, and streaming.
They wanted to talk about they wanted to debate the Beck Revival meeting, have you on opposite Dr. Jerry Newcomb of Coral Ridge Ministries. We have an excerpt of both of your opening comments.
Said that our nation is one nation under God, and because it's one nation under God, it's not up to the state to determine whether we have our rights.
Now, Dan, do you agree with Dr. Newcomb's statement there?
I'm the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and we have at least 16,000 members nationwide, representing tens of millions of atheists and agnostics who flatly disagree. Our country was founded on liberty. Our country was founded on a godless Constitution. By the way, the Declaration does not mention Christianity or Jesus, or doesn't even specify what kind of a deity was there. And Thomas Jefferson, as we all know, who penned the Declaration, did not believe in the God of the Bible or the Christian God. Our founding fathers explicitly in the first Congress stated the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. It's true that many of the founders were believers, but none of the founders were women. None of them thought women should vote. We are not obligated today to go back and become carbon copies of the private religious views of some of our founders. We are a proudly godless secular nation, and much better off because our founders were wise enough to distance themselves from the divisiveness of the early colonies, who used to persecute and exclude and banish those who did not have the right faith. So no, America never was a godly nation.
So in your closing comments on the Alona show, Dan, you kind of more specifically addressed some of Beck's assertions.
All right, gentlemen, we have to wrap it up in 1 second. But, Dan, let me ask you this question very quickly. Since this is a democracy, if 80% of Americans are Christians, if people decided that they wanted to instate a national religion, do you think that they should be able to?
No, because the Constitution precludes that. You can't do away with freedom of speech or freedom of the press or freedom of assembly. Freedom of religion is hardwired into our Constitution. And people like Glenn Beck do Martin Luther King Jr. a great disservice, a man who preached against intolerance and divisiveness. And here the Christian right wants to go back to intolerance and to exclude those of us who do not believe in their particular God from full participation in the American experiment. That is wrong. We should resist that.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you both very much for for joining me. And, well, I think you know my feelings on Glenn Beck. You just heard him.
So Fox TV, of course, was gloating over all of this. Glenn Beck on his show had David Barton, who's a theocrat, the wall builders person, talking about the latest scheme to tear down the wall between church and state, the announcement of another, what they call Pulpit Freedom Day, September 26th, calling on ministers in their taxis and pulpits to endorse candidates from the pulpit.
So there's finally a pushback, and this year on what was called, or what is called Pulpit Freedom Sunday, you'll have several hundred preachers standing up and saying, IRS, come after me. I dare you. Come get me.
That's David Barton, and then here's what Glenn Beck says about this.
Oh, America. Oh, tell your preachers and your pastors and your priests and your rabbis about this. Oh, yeah, please.
So this is the brainchild of the Alliance Defense Fund. We've talked about them on our show. They're a very wealthy Christian right legal team, and we'll be watching this.
They're telling preachers to break the law to use their pulpits to endorse candidates. We see some very serious religious demagoguery going on, very serious assaults on the separation between church and state, historical revisionism, you name it.
And listeners, when you encounter it, please debunk it.
In a few minutes, we're going to talk with an 82-year-old non-believing Wisconsin farmer who helped put the Freedom from Religion Foundation billboard near his hometown that says, "There is no afterlife, so enjoy life now." He did it as a legacy for his grandchildren.
And now, first we had the birthers, and now we have the dunkers, to quote Bill Dunn, who's editor of Free Thought Today. In an article in the right-wing Accuracy in Media website, Cliff Kincaid makes this absurd argument that Barack Obama is really a Muslim because there is no proof Obama was ever baptized. The Canada Free Press published an article this year by Madeline Brooks, who asked, "Where is the baptism certificate? We do not see one because there was no baptism. That central part of Christianity was not required at Obama's former church, the Trinity United Church of Christ, during the years Obama attended. And, of course, Obama's mother was not religious, and you don't have to have a baptism certificate to actually exist." And I can say I don't have one either.
Now, this is a little bit of old news from last year, but we just found this TV coverage about the fact that a Mormon submitted President Obama's mother's name for a proxy Mormon baptism, and I think this is kind of funny.
The LDS Church is confirming President Barack Obama's mother was posthumously baptized into the church last year.
Fox 13's Andrea Fujii spoke with the researcher who found the baptismal record. She's live at Temple Square tonight. Andrea.
Well, Bob and Hope, Helen Radke is a researcher who was going through baptismal records and found the name of President Barack Obama's mother, Ann Dunham, who was apparently baptized and endowed in the Provo Temple.
It's a put down of her beliefs, no matter what her beliefs were.
Ann Dunham, full name Stanley Ann Dunham, died in 1995, and not much is known about her religious affiliation, but President Obama calls himself a Christian, but not a Mormon. Helen Radke is a researcher and often uses the LDS genealogical website.
I thought I'll look it up out of curiosity, and there it was.
The LDS Church says they perform baptisms on deceased relatives for nearly 180 years. But church policy is that persons cannot be baptized posthumously any earlier than 95 years after a death if a direct descendant has not submitted their name. The website does not verify who submitted her name. The LDS Church released a statement to Fox 13 stating their concern. They say in part, the church is looking into the circumstances of how this happened and does not yet have all the facts.
Sad commentary on this country that politicians have to wear religion on their sleeves in order to get elected.
Well, and perfectly ridiculous that our president would have to go around proving that he's a Christian and not, horrors, a Muslim or worse.
Or a Mormon.
And by the way, Barack Obama's mother, as I said, according to Barack Obama's own autobiographical accounts, was a non-believer. And he wrote that she was always so kind and compassionate.